Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Ayyona Janae, and I am happy to be back once again with another episode for you all. This week, we are going to be talking about my foundation of how I got into, well, that sounds kind of, to word it that way, sounds like I'm going to give you my backstory. I'm not. This particular topic is just how I got started in learning more about sex, sexual wellness, and things of that nature. So we're going to be talking about sexual wellness, but from a holistic standpoint. I began researching holistic sexual wellness when I was in high school. I had to be about 14, and it was partially because I had plans to become sexually active during that time period. And I wanted to know the ins and outs of sexual wellness, and also that was when I had first started hearing about, eat pineapples and you'll taste good and things like that. And I was curious about oral sex, how those things happened, and what the experience would be like, and how I wanted the experience to be a pleasant one for both myself and my partner at the time. And I figured, well, in order for that to be a thing, I'm going to have to switch up my diet a bit, which was great because during that time I ended up losing like a lot of weight and all that good stuff. But, of course, the added benefit, well, they're both added benefits, honestly. Just overall wellness in general was the main benefit, and then the added benefit was weight loss, and then great smells and tastes. So that's again pretty much how I got into sex and sex. Well, I won't even say that's how I got into sex. That's how I got into the wellness aspect of sex, because sex in general has always been something that I've been passionate about and curious about, even in childhood, before I even hit double digits. And it's just because childish curiosity, if you can call it that. I was really just very inquisitive and curious, and I was going to seek my information, and if it was an interesting topic for me, then I am one to always delve deeper and get very submerged in it. And so that's what sex was for me. But yeah, so we're talking about sexual wellness, holistic sexual wellness, and of course we're going to be talking about foods and things of that nature, how foods and how your diet can affect your sexual wellness. And not just from the standpoint of taste and smell and things of that nature, but also from the standpoint of your vaginal secretions, your erections, things of that nature. And then we are also going to look at some of the spiritual aspects of sexual wellness, of course, because I wouldn't be me if I did not tie that in somehow. And that's what makes it holistic. It's not just the physical, but the other aspect as well. So, we're going to view it from a mental wellness lens and an emotional wellness lens and a spiritual wellness lens, and how what you consume, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, does have an effect on your sexual wellness. And we're going to talk about how it affects it. So we're going to take a very quick break, and you guys stay tuned. And we're going to begin by talking about foods. So I'll see you soon.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
And we are back. As mentioned earlier, one of the main things that I learned about regarding sexual wellness, aside from condoms and STDs and things like that, was pineapples. Good old pineapples. You eat them, you taste sweet. We know the story. Whether you are a man or a woman, whether you have a penis or a vagina, you eat the pineapples, you drink the water, you're going to taste sweet. Or you're going to taste, your secretions are going to taste, secretions. Potato. Tomato. Anyway, your secretions are going to taste sweeter than normal if you consume pineapples, and of course if you drink the water. Please, I cannot stress enough, one important thing about overall wellness in general is just drink your water, please and thank you. Now, like I said, I learned about pineapples, and that was okay for me because I love pineapples. It was great. So as a 14-year-old, I was like, I don't eat many fruits and vegetables, but I can do this. But as I got older, I began to learn that it's more than just pineapples. So other foods include strawberries, blueberries, fruit in general. Be careful though with highly acidic fruits because the vagina is already acidic enough, and so if you eat too much of them, too much acid can throw the vagina off. You want to, of course, keep it at a nice balance. You want to keep it at a nice balance. So if you consume too many acidic foods, too many acidic fruits, too many acidic vegetables, just acid in general, too much of it is going to heavily affect your pH. And the same goes for penises as well. Penises are more basic in pH. So, and that's like kind of the thing about vaginas and penises. They kind of balance each other out as far as pH is concerned, but it's also how one can throw off the pH of the other, because it kind of like you know what I'm trying to say. So with that in mind, this doesn't just pertain to fruits and vegetables. Be mindful of all acidic foods in general. So be careful with onions. Be careful with coffees, red meats, things of that nature. Garlic is kind of like a double-edged sword, because garlic has probiotics in it, which is great for your vaginal flora and things of that nature, but also too much of it can throw off your pH. So, but that's also just probiotics in general. Too much of a probiotic can throw off your pH, because too much good bacteria can throw off the balanced flora. Our bodies are a breeding ground for balance. And so it thrives on being simply balanced. There's a balance of good and a balance of bad. So too much of that good bacteria is actually not good. And of course, too much bad bacteria is never good. But the balance in the space, in the vaginal space, is perfect. And so you have to, again, be careful if you consume too much probiotics, too many probiotics. Because like I said, probiotics are great for your gut flora, for your vaginal flora, and it's important to also note that your gut flora does affect your vaginal flora. So if you eat too many foods that have a lot of lactic acid, that throws off your gut flora, and in turn ends up throwing off your vaginal flora, your womb environment. And unfortunately, that is how, along with other things that I'll discuss, that is ultimately how fibroids become or come to be, is because of too much lactic acid, too much dairy and red meats and meats in general, honestly, because of that uric acid and that lactic acid combined, they come together and they feed fibroids. So be careful with that. And I'm not saying cut them out completely, but limit them. Everything in moderation. We are always told everything in moderation. And that just simply goes back to what I said about balance. Balance is very important for maintaining general wellness, sexual or otherwise. So, let's see, I talked about coffee and onions. Also be careful with asparagus. We all know asparagus changes the scent of urine, but asparagus can also change the scent of your vagina in general. I know I keep mentioning the vagina. Men, yes, I know you exist. I know penises exist. As a woman, of course, I'm more well versed in what is beneficial for the vagina. However, I am still well versed in what is beneficial for the penis as well. You all are not as affected as far as, well, I'm not even going to say that, because actually too much red meat in your diets, and too much of these acidic foods in your diets and fried foods and things of that nature throw off your libido, and it throws off the libido for both of us, for men and women. If you consume too much of these foods that are harmful to you in general, they will be harmful to, of course, your sexual wellness. And so if you eat too much red meat, you drink too much coffee, you eat too many onions, you smoke cigarettes, it will throw off your libido. It will cause, it can cause premature ejaculation. It can cause erectile dysfunction, premature erectile dysfunction. So if you're like in your 20s and you're trying to figure out why you're having difficulty maintaining erection or getting an erection, it is because I won't say it is because, but there's a very strong possibility that your diet plays a large part in it. And if you want to fix that, you're gonna have to shape up, my good sir, and adjust your diet. Trying to think, what other foods? Of course, keep consuming water. Humans we're 75% water, or 70% water, something like that. We thrive in water. We come from water. If you think about it, think about the environment of a womb. There's a film that I've seen. I don't know if anybody else has ever seen it. If you haven't, I suggest you do see it at some point. It's just a classic, particularly in the black community. It's called Baby Boy, and there is an image of this man in a womb, and the womb, it's water. And if you think about the amniotic sac, that amniotic fluid, it's water, it's fluid. We come from water, and water is very beneficial to us. That kind of got really, really woo-woo to a degree, but drink your water. Water is important to us. Always revert back to water in order to heal yourself in any sense, sexually or otherwise. Also take your vitamins. There are also herbs that you can consume for your sexual wellness. These herbs for men include one huge one for men is yohimbe root. Take it in moderation. Again, remember that word, moderation, balance. Take yohimbe root in moderation. It is very good for boosting your libido, your sexual energy, boosting erections, endurance, all of that. But take it in moderation, because too much of it can affect your heart in a negative way. So there's yohimbe root, there is ashwagandha root, there is maca root. Maca root works for both men and women. There's red maca that works really well for women, and it regulates our hormones and things like that. So if you deal with PMS, if you take red maca root, I suggest not getting the maca powder from like Walmart or something like that, because it probably won't affect you as much. But get like the $25 maca root powder from like Amazon or something like that, or maybe not Amazon if you can find it somewhere else, because Amazon kind of got some stuff going on right now. But yeah, get some good red maca root powder, women, to boost your libido, boost fertility, improve your hormone or the balance of your hormones. What else? Pau de Arco does the same. As far as boosting improving your hormonal balance. Let's see, there's nettle. Nettle is great for vaginal lubrication. So is chamomile. So what you can do with chamomile is you can either drink it in tea form, or you can take it, boil it as a tea, and use the tea as a wash, and wash your vagina with it, or wash your vulva with it, I'll say. And that, again, improves vaginal lubrication, and also it's just, you're cleansing with herbs, so it's not going to negatively affect you. It's not going to throw off your pH either. What other herbs are there? Rose hips are great. I talked about vaginal steaming in the Sex Magic episode, but I didn't mention any herbs. So herbs that I don't remember mentioning any herbs anyway. So herbs that are great to use for that include lavender, chamomile, like I said, calendula, which is marigolds. I think I did talk about this a bit, but also you can use rose hips in it. Basil, rosemary, also hibiscus is a great herb for women. Hibiscus and raspberry leaf. Think that may cover it. Also, yams are great for women. So if you are maybe experiencing menopause, or you just notice like maybe you're not as lubricated as you once were. Yams are great. Salmon is great because of the omega-3s and fatty acids that exist in those foods, as well as avocado. And if you think about an avocado looks like a uterus. It looks like a womb. And it's actually really good for your womb. So yeah, I think that about covers it for foods. Pineapple juice, cranberry juice. Pineapple juice and cranberry juice also for like smell and taste. Cranberry juice, as far as UTIs are concerned, there has actually not been a lot of studies talking about cranberry juice being beneficial for UTIs. So I would not say that cranberry juice is good for that, but it is good for improving taste, and pineapple juice is as well. And you have to use the pure cranberry juice, not the ocean sprays. Nothing against them, but like it's heavily saturated in sugars, and it doesn't have the same effect on your vaginal taste as pure cranberry juice does. So we're going to take a quick break, and in the next segment we are going to talk about some of the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of sexual wellness. So we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Alright, so when I think about spirituality, I think about the mental and emotional connection that exists within us. And I understand that it's not just one or the other, but they both connect, and they in turn have an effect on our physical being. And so when I think about I've talked about physical consumption, what we consume as far as what we eat, what we put into our bodies in that way. And now with spiritual wellness, as far as sex is concerned, it is important to look at the energies that we surround ourselves with what we look at on television, with the messages that we are taking in, with the emotions that we hold within our bodies, within our nervous systems, within our hearts. And it is important to understand that all of those play a role in our sexual wellness. And if one is off, it will throw a wrench in the whole program, sexually speaking. So, take for instance your heart. Being a person who focuses a lot on spiritual energy and things of that nature, I like to pay attention to the chakras. And so the chakras being the root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. And then of course there are many other chakras throughout the body, but those are the 7 main energy spheres and 7 main energy centers within our body, within our being, within our vessel. Now, when you think about those, again, everything's linked. And the ones that are linked the most are from our heart to our sacral. So that includes the heart chakra, the solar plexus, the sacral chakra. How so? Because the heart chakra and the sacral chakra are centers of love, intimacy, creation, and things of that nature. You create from your heart, but also the sacral chakra is the creative energy sphere. That sexual energy is also creative energy. That is how humans are created. That is how sex magic is what it is. And then also the solar plexus in the middle. Solar plexus is that drive, that the energy sphere of your drive, and it drives the two. Therefore, if one of those is off, it will heavily affect your sexual wellness. If your heart chakra is out of whack, for instance, the way that it negatively affects your womb or your penis or whatever the case may be is, one, it creates your heart chakra is closed, or your heart chakra is inactive or underactive. Because of that, there is no energy of love. And because there is no energy of love present within you, that in general, that in itself lowers your frequency. But also, take a situation where you've been heartbroken multiple times. But you're heartbroken after you've had sex with someone. So biologically speaking, and also as far as the psychological aspect of sex is concerned, every time you are aroused, every time after that, you end up hurt. You end up emotionally scarred, emotionally hurt. Well, what if you tell yourself, I don't want to experience that heartbreak anymore? Now, we are creatures of habit, and so our bodies tend to connect experiences. This is operant conditioning. And so your body will get in the habit of connecting that sexual arousal to emotional hurt. And so if you tell yourself you don't want to experience that hurt anymore, what your body is going to do is cancel out everything that is associated with that. And unfortunately, that happens when we really don't want to deal with it, because there's always a root to that hurt, especially if you keep attracting it, or not necessarily attracting it, but it seems like it just keeps coming. And then if we fight the root, we, one, harbor all of that energy within ourselves, within our heart chakra, thus creating more negative energy within it. And then we are saying, I don't want to experience this anymore. So what you're basically saying is you don't want to experience anything associated with that, because your body has already connected the sexual arousal to the emotional hurt. So now your body is going to say, okay, well, we're just going to cancel out the sexual arousal as well. And now suddenly you can't have erections like you used to, or you can't be lubricated like you used to, or you can no longer orgasm anymore. And it is because of the connection that your heart and your body and your mind, your spirit and your body have made. And even if you don't want to consider it that way, because our bodies are very intelligent and they tend to do what we tell them to do. But even if you don't want to think about that or consider that, or you don't believe that, okay, what does happen, or what you can believe is that a subconscious seed is planted. And when a subconscious seed is planted, we tend to act on it because of trauma. Because of the trauma of it. We behave, if we've experienced trauma in our lives and we've tucked it away and we haven't dealt with it, we do tend to operate from that traumatic space, from that fear center, a whole lot, even if it is subconscious or unconscious. And so what tends to happen when we have tucked away all of these emotions that have come, what we think have come as a result of our sexual arousal, or have come in conjunction with our sexual arousal, when we tuck those emotions away and we don't deal with them, we don't process them, we don't heal from them, we will behave from those fear centers. And behaving from those fear centers means protecting ourselves in some type of way. And we subconsciously close off our sexual wombs, our sexual spheres, our sexual centers, because we do not want to feel the pain that has been associated with it. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense to you, let me know, and I'll be happy to explain further in a later episode. But that is a way that our hearts and our sacral chakras are connected, or that our heart is connected to our womb, or our heart is connected to our sexual spheres, our sexual centers. And then, as far as mental wellness is concerned, again, I consider both to be spiritual. But if you think about mental wellness, if you are depressed, and with depression, it's mainly like a lowered level of serotonin and dopamine. Well, these are also hormones that are associated with sex or with sexual arousal, especially serotonin, particularly in men, because serotonin tends to regulate our bodily functions of erections and ejaculation and things of that nature. And so when we y'all can make a drinking game out of how many times I say and things of that nature. But when you are depressed, it tends to affect your sexual experiences. And so how do you combat that? Well, this again goes to how the physical is also connected to the mental and the spiritual, because what you can do is, of course, medication, but then the medications that are given for depression and anxiety do tend to negatively affect our sexual experiences even more, because they may completely cut out our libido. However, what can be done also is think about the foods that you put in your body. Medicine has come from food for years. Since the beginning of time, the beginning of millennia. So don't get so wrapped up in medication. Now, I'm not telling you not to take medication. I am not a physician. Consult your physician. But if you deal with depression, what I will say is there are foods that do help with depression, because it tends to, or in anxiety or any other mental dis-ease. Because what these dis-eases do represent is there may be something emotionally or spiritually or energetically taking place, but also that energy deficiency is could be due to some sort of vitamin deficiency. Because a lot of depression can be, it's a hormonal thing. So it can be due to a vitamin deficiency. So you have a serotonin deficiency. There are foods that have like 5-HTP and tryptophan and things like that in them that will help make sure you are regulating those things it'll regulate those hormones within your body, or those vitamins or those nutrients within your body. So feel free to look up the different foods that are great for that. I also have a list of them. I have a list of foods that are good for sexual wellness. I have a list of foods that are good for depression. I have a list of foods that are good for anxiety. So if you would like those, I would be happy to give them. But you have to think about the foods that you put into your body. And not to say that depression is your fault, but you can always fight. You can always fight it. I am a very, very avid person. As somebody who deals with anxiety currently, and has dealt with depression, it is a fight. And it is necessary to fight with everything that you have in you. I'm a very avid believer in that, and a very avid supporter of fighting and not letting things control your body, control you, control your essence, and not giving your life away to a thing, and not letting that thing convince you that it has you. And so be mindful of the foods that you put into your body. And be mindful of the energies that you have around you. What type of energy do you have around you? Do you have dark energy around you? Do you have things around you that put you into that dark place? Well, you have to cleanse that energy. What are you holding on to that may be contributing to that depression, that may be contributing to that anxiety? You have to deal with it. You have to face it. A lot of times it'll come because there are just things within us that we have not dealt with yet, or we keep replaying them and reliving them instead of processing them and healing from them. And unfortunately, again, having all of that stored up negative energy can come out sexually, can manifest itself sexually by way of premature ejaculation, by way of erectile dysfunction, by way of vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, BV, bacterial vaginosis, or even chronic yeast infections, because there is a lot of negative pent-up energy that has been stored in our minds, in our hearts, in our wombs, in your penis, that has not been processed and properly released, and it has just sat and festered. And that is also how fibroids can be created as well, just from stress. Stress also contributes to these things. And so you have to be mindful of the type of energy you have around you. Stay in flow, stay balanced, be at peace. Find your peace within yourself. Always find peace within yourself. And you will see that the way that you have grown to respond sexually, or to not respond even, has had something to do with the peace that you have not felt within. And so it is important to be mindful, again, of the energies that you have around you, of the energies that you are consuming. Just had to take a breath there. Also be mindful of your breath. And another thing, just always be mindful of breath. Breath is life. Breathe. Take the time to breathe. And breathe not just into your body, but into your womb specifically, or into your penis specifically. Breathe that life into your sexual energy sphere. And as you breathe that life, you're allowing energy to flow and also allowing negative energies to dissipate. I can remember, I'm not going to talk about that yet. We're going to go to a quick break, and then I'm going to talk about that to close us out.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Alright, so before we cut for break, I was getting ready to tell you about how I know about the things that I'm talking about, especially about the emotional and spiritual connection with sexual wellness, and just some ways that I combated that. So, when I was about 19, I noticed a shift in my vaginal secretions, and when I say that, I mean I was drier than normal, and I couldn't really figure out why. I figured it was because I was on birth control and things like that, but I was just like, but I've been on birth control for the past couple of years, so that can't be. And I have the IUD. I don't take pills or anything, but I do have the IUD. And I got the IUD because I just wanted a method that would not harm me as much as pills and things like that. So I chalked it up to just having an IUD. But I was like, I don't think that's it. Something's still off. So I started doing my research, and I thought back to when I was in high school, and I was like, okay, well, you know these things about sexual wellness and things like that. Okay, well, you have been eating a lot of dairy, which I was, and I was eating a lot of dairy at that time, and I was also very depressed at that time. And I was depressed because I had just experienced a breakup, and I was heartbroken, and I hadn't really processed that energy. And I didn't think about at that time that holding that negative energy within me could affect me sexually. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just like, okay, I didn't think I was depressed at the time. So I was just like, okay, I'll just stop eating dairy. Like, I'll just stop. So I stopped eating dairy. Didn't really notice much of a difference. And so then that's when I started getting more into holistic medicine and understanding spiritual aspects and how depression can affect you. And so then I began to realize, like, how depressed I was. And I didn't want to self-diagnose, but I mean, I did anyway, because who doesn't self-diagnose? So I was just like, okay, I know that I am experiencing these symptoms of depression, so I'm not going to rule it out. But why am I experiencing depression? Like, okay, yeah, I got dumped, but I'm over it. So like, it had been months, and I was just like, and I had a new partner by this point, and I was just like, I'm over it, whatever. Really, I wasn't. And it wasn't until I began to do the inner work necessary that and look at these different healing modalities that I began to realize I wasn't really over that. I had not processed that energy. This energy had really compounded upon other energy that needed to be processed. And even that part is very recent. That understanding that part, I'll say, is very recent. Because I've worked through a lot of things in the past few months, and I'm still working through some stuff. And I am realizing that as each thing gets cleared, as each bit of energy gets cleared, things change. I'll say that much. Things change. And so it's very important to notice, pay attention to your energy. Pay attention to what your energy looks like, how your energy affects your body, what your body looks like and feels like when your energy is in flow, what your mind and your heart look like and feel like when that energy is in flow. Because when it is not, or when it is blocked by energy that has been harbored for a period of time, it can very much so affect your body. So, what I did to combat that, I did a few things, because again, I began looking into these different healing modalities, and I have a bit of an issue with Western medicine already, but even still, I'm not biased, because I know that everything has its place, because again, balance is important. So I don't completely rule out Western medicine, but I do know that there are parts of ancient medicine and Eastern medicine that Western medicine will rule out. So I will say, judge for yourself, but I know that I am my own case study. So even though there are articles that are telling us not to do certain things, not to use certain, put certain foreign objects in our vaginas and things like that, I also have experienced the shift. And I have also seen other women who have experienced the shift when doing these things. So yoni steaming or vaginal steaming, womb steaming, which is a very ancient practice, helps a great deal, especially if you do it in a ritual sense. I talked about this in the Sex Magic episode. If you think about it in a ritual sense, and you do, like, as this thing rises into me, I release all negative energy that is blocking my womb and my heart and my mind, and blocking my body and blocking my energy from flowing properly. If you do that, say that prayer to yourself. And if you don't, it's not about a belief system. You can pray for yourself, because you are simply, it's a petition for yourself. For those of you who understand what petition means, it is simply speaking life into yourself and over yourself, speaking affirmations to yourself and over yourself, and telling your body and telling your heart, we are releasing this. And not even just telling your heart, but firmly believing, we are releasing this. And be willing to do the work that comes along with that. Because what I will say is, some stuff will come up, and you may cry as that energy is processing its way through your body. You may pass gas. You don't know what will happen. You may burp, fart, cough, whatever. But that energy is now moving, because you have given it permission to move, because you have finally acknowledged that that energy is stuck. Other ways that I've done or that have helped me is yoni eggs. So yoni eggs, or you can use Kegel balls, but if you want the metaphysical properties of crystals, I recommend yoni eggs. So I've used rose quartz and rhodonite, which are both crystals for self-love. And with crystals, it's important to bond with them. So place the crystals against your skin so that it picks up on your energy, and gets more familiar with your energy, and it can infuse its energetic properties with your energy. Again, believe what you want. What I do know is that nature is living. So nature is living, and we are connected to nature, and crystals are part of nature. So yes, I do believe that those crystals hold specific energies and properties because they have come from nature, and we have come from nature, and we hold specific energies and properties within ourselves. So for like self-empowerment and self-love, I use the crystals rhodonite and rose quartz. Those were what my yoni eggs were comprised of. And how yoni eggs work is you start with the largest one and you work your way down to the smallest, and you Kegel with the yoni eggs. So like maybe you'll be Kegeling with the large one for about a month, and then you'll notice it fits more snug. That means you need to work your way down to the medium, and then that one will start fitting more snug, and then that means you need to work your way down to the small, and that's the smallest it'll get. But now your muscles are tighter. And because you strengthen those muscles, your PC muscles, and you have also began to infuse your womb, your vaginal walls with the metaphysical properties of these crystals, there's some good energy there. And then also, as you are working those muscles, you are allowing you're bringing warmth and energy and heat to that space, creating more lubrication because of the moving and the flexing of those muscles. And then I also use yoni detox pearls. I have seen women who have gone from infertile to fertile from using detox pearls. And what they are is just balls of herbs, tiny balls of herbs. Sometimes they'll be called like clean point tampons, and they're again just little balls of herbs. And if you want, you can look up the instructions on how to use those properly, because it really just depends on whatever your dis-ease is. So for preventative care, they recommend like using one a month. One a month for like 1 or 2 days, and just leaving it in and then taking it out. And what articles have said is like, that doesn't sound right, just leaving something in and taking it out after 2 days or whatever, because it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right to us because it's just not what we are used to. And unfortunately, when we are not used to something, or we just don't understand, we automatically shun it away. And yes, it can, there's a possibility that it can be dangerous if we test it or whatever, but it can also be dangerous if you don't. So, and a lot can be, you'll find that a lot can be avoided, by just figuring things out for yourself. Like how can I say that? Particularly in this situation, you'll find that a lot can be avoided as far as like surgeries and things like that if you just try it out. And your physician may not agree with it. I have my own theories on why physicians don't agree, beyond the fact that we just fear what we don't know. But what I will say is, don't rule out nature. Don't rule out ancient practices. Because again, I've seen women who have gone from infertile to fertile from using detox pearls. women who have purged leftover remnants of abortions, that leftover scar tissue, and now suddenly they're fertile because that leftover scar tissue, which was also probably leftover negative energy, has been purged and released. And women release fibroids by using these detox pearls, because it begins to, the medicinal properties within them begin to work their way into our wombs and break them down particle by particle, piece by piece. They're cells, really. They're just an accumulation of cells. Does Western medicine that we know, or pharmaceuticals that we know, do they not work their way into our systems and break down cells that are harmful to us? So why do you not think that herbal medicine can do the same? With all of this in mind, what I will say is be your own case study. Don't allow me to tell you things. And also don't allow pharmaceutical companies or even just your physician to tell you things and spoon feed you things and essentially live your life for you, because they may have a motive. My motive is just to educate you, but it is very necessary for you to question motives when thinking about why these things are working for people, but then your physician, these ancient practices are working, but then your physician will tell you, yeah, don't do that. Well, why not? These are working for other people. Why not me? What is your thing against it? Is it because you just don't understand it? And if that's the case, then that is when you do research for yourself. Because you never trust the information from somebody who doesn't even understand it. Because they're operating from a space of fear and confusion. But I hope that I have educated you on something today, and I hope that I was able to assist you and get you some clarity on how to better take care of yourself sexually. And as always, I thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And I look forward to joining you all and you all joining me again next week. Thank you, and y'all have a good one. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.